properly. There we go. I think y'all are seeing that
Excellent.
now.
And so we're grateful. Yes, we can see it fine. And we're grateful to have Kathy Hastings here with us. She serves as the Director of Outreach and Communications at SEAA. And we're grateful that she was able to be here to provide some great information. I've seen forms of this presentation before, and I think you'll be enlightened with the information, and I think it'll be very helpful to understand what is going on. Also, I think you'll have an opportunity to get your questions answered as we move forward in this new form of the state scholarship program. So without further ado, Kathy, the mic is yours.
Great, thanks so much. And thanks to everyone who's joining us this morning. JW, thanks for keeping an eye on the questions in chat, because it's hard for me to kind of look at the slides and that too, but feel free to interrupt me if questions come along. Particularly, we are going to go through some data slides. I know sometimes those get a little, if you're like me, you kind of want to go a little further and pause. So don't be afraid to interrupt me. We will be sharing the slides afterwards. So that way, if you want to take a little more time to digest some of what we're sharing with you today, no worries. We'll make sure you've got an opportunity to do that. I am super excited to share about the Next NC Scholarship, which, as many of you know, is a culmination of multiple years of work in terms of streamlining and consolidating our need-based grants so that it makes it easier for students to understand. And, you know, kind of the key, you know, not to let too much of the cat out of the bag right at the beginning. But the good news is the research shows it is effective at helping increase students' likelihood of attending college, particularly at your institution. So I'm excited to share some of the research findings we gleaned this last summer in support of launching the new Consolidated Need-Based Grant. And I will share some of the campaign materials. The landing page is live. More materials are coming soon. So stay tuned on that, but we're thrilled to have you as partners in this. So let's go ahead and get started. For those of you who aren't familiar with SEAA, we are the state agency that helps North Carolina students pay for their education. We bring the CFNC website, which is the college going website, not only to students and parents, but also to your partners, the school counselors and the college access professionals who help students along that what can be an overwhelming and complicated process. Each year, we help tens of thousands of students pay for their education at their institutions, and we're very excited to see them enroll and complete at your institution. So again, we're grateful to be partners with y'all. Before I dive into the research, I just want to give a quick update from the feds. We were on a call with them a couple of weeks ago. There are some changes with Better FAFSA that I want to make sure you all know, because it obviously has an impact on not only students applying for the need-based grant, but also in terms of our timing. They did announce that FAFSA will be open by December 31st. There is some confusion around that. It's not an official, it's launching on that date, it's by that date. It may be up sooner, but for, you know, if they see errors on it, they will take it back down. So at this point, we're sort of assuming December 31st is our date. But wanted to clear up some of that confusion. It is expected to be available in both English and Spanish, the online version and the printed version. But the other important thing for you all to know is the ICERs, or the student records that come out of completing a FAFSA, are not going to be available until the end of January. They obviously, FSA's in crunch time. Their most important thing is to get FAFSA up and going. Once that's done, then they will shift their attention to getting those student records out to your financial aid departments. It's probably not going to happen until the end of January. I think most financial aid folks know that by now, but sharing that in case any folks are on this call and weren't aware of that. It does impact getting student financial aid award letters out for those early filers. And then we provide two tools for the school counselors to use called Finish the FAFSA and the FAFSA Tracker. It is going to impact the timing of when we can make those available to your partners as well. So quick update there. I want to make sure you know that. Certainly, if there's any questions, feel free to throw those in the chat. Okay, on to research findings. So we did 2 pieces of research this last summer in advance of the state scholarship. The first was a survey of students, both adult learners and traditional age high school students and their families over the summer. It was representative of North Carolina residents, with one exception. We did constrain it by households that with an AGI of 75,000 or less, because at the time that's what you needed to qualify for the grant. So this isn't quite everyone in the state. It is geared more towards folks who may have financial need. We also didn't focus on CTE or continuing education types of education beyond high school, because again, it wasn't part of this grant. But other than that, the survey results were representative of our state. We then followed that initial piece of research with some focus groups so we could dive a little deeper into understanding some of their perceptions around higher education and FAFSA. Particularly since we were hearing from quite a few of you that more and more parents are starting to refuse to share their information on FAFSA. We wanted to understand that a little bit better. So to see if we could come up with messaging that might counter some of the misperceptions there. Okay, so here's our starting point. The top 2 bars are adult learners. The bottom 2 bars are traditional high school students and families. Our starting point, we just simply ask them, what's the likelihood that you are planning to attend college in the next 5 years? And what you'll see is it's about a quarter for adult learners, and it's about half for traditional students. Again, it's for the lower income households. But initially this slide kind of took my breath away, but again, remember, this was our starting point. And then once we introduced messaging, as you'll see, the numbers start to move, which is exciting. And that's exactly what we wanted to see. We also asked them their likelihood of completing a FAFSA if they're intending to go to college. And for those who are considering higher ed, only about half are thinking about completing a FAFSA, which you need to complete in order to get the need-based grant. So again, wanted to see our starting point. When we asked them what are some of the biggest barriers to attending financial aid in higher education, no surprise to any of you, cost is the leading barrier. But what was interesting is when it was particularly so when it was framed around the idea of taking on student loan debt. That fear of debt is real and palpable. We heard it in the focus groups afterwards. The fear is significant enough where it's actually keeping some people from considering going to college and or considering alternative educational pathways to avoid that student debt. So that's front and center, 59% for your adult learners, 45% for your traditional age students. But we also saw things like I don't know how to access financial aid, or getting financial aid is too complicated. Again, part of the reason why we did this this consolidation of the need-based grant, and then finally getting financial aid is takes too much time. So those are all things that we can do something about. There are some perceptions around the cost of getting a degree, or perhaps they can achieve their goals without it. Those are not necessarily addressed by this scholarship, but those other areas, those other concerns are actually things that with this consolidation, we can begin to speak to some of those concerns. Next, we ask them, who are their primary messengers specifically around FAFSA? Who do they turn to get help with FAFSA? School counselors and college access advisors were their most trusted source. And in some ways that makes a lot of sense because those are the people they know, they see them every day. But the piece that I found interesting is it was not only true for traditional students, but also for your adult learners too. So I know many of you definitely support and cater to adult learners. Little did we know that our school counselors we can take a 2-gen strategy with them, that not only are they supporting their high school students, but hey, do those adults or parents want to go back and complete a credential as well? When we began to look specifically around the state scholarship or the consolidated scholarship, this was the description we gave them. So I wanted you to know the actual words we use, which is the state basically sets aside millions of dollars to make attending public colleges manageable. There's a new program that's created. If you're from a household of 75,000 or less, you're going to get 2,800 from a community college or minimum, or 5,000 per year for a public university. And this is money that doesn't need to be paid back. That's the message they saw. And here's what came out of that. So then you'll remember we started at the beginning. What's your likelihood of attending higher education in the next 5 years? What's the likelihood you're going to complete a FAFSA? This is the FAFSA result. So left side, the 3 bars are adult learners. Right side, traditional age students and their high school students and their parents. The far left bars for each of those groupings was that initial, what's your initial idea or plan? Midway through was introducing that messaging around the need-based scholarship with the specific dollar amounts, household income sizes. And then we introduced some additional messaging around the benefits of higher education. And then we asked them those questions again. What's your likelihood of completing a FAFSA and going to college? So what you see here is for adult learners, their interest in completing a FAFSA goes up 10 points from the start of the survey to the end of the survey, just by getting messaging around the state scholarship and around the benefits of higher education. For high school families, it goes up 5 points. But what's even more exciting is when we asked the same thing about their likelihood of attending higher education in the next 5 years, from the start of the survey to midway, getting that information around the need-based scholarship to the end, benefits of higher education. Adult learners are on your left again, high school families are on your right. For 2-year programs, for adult learners and high school students, their interest and likelihood of attending higher education goes up 14 points. That's a lot. I don't often see that big of a jump in a market research survey like this. So this got us pretty excited because this is exactly what we were hoping to accomplish with consolidating the need-based scholarships. So then we talked about who are your trusted messengers. Before it was around FAFSA completion. Then we asked for this need-based scholarship, if you were looking for information about it, where would you expect to find the messages and how would you like to learn about it? No surprise, your individual college's website and interacting with you all is at or near the top. So you're a primary source for this information, which is part of why we're talking to you. But school counselors and advisors are number 2. And again, that's even true for your adult learners. Right behind that is your system office and your system office website, which is part of why Nathan and the team at the system office work so hard to update the system office website. It's another source of information to them and a pretty primary source of information for them. The CFNC website and the reps are right behind that. For high school students, teachers are also super important. So we always make sure the school counselors have that information, but we might also want to make sure we're partnering with those teachers in those key education areas. The other thing I want to draw your attention to, though, is for high school students, coaches. 1 in 10 rely on their coaches because those are the trusted people in their lives that they see on a regular basis. So knowing that you have partners in this work kind of across the school and in other parts of the community is important to know in terms of bringing them in and making sure they know about the scholarship as well, which is part of the work that we are partnering with you on. Okay, so let's get to the actual scholarship. Because of the research we did, it helped inform the campaign that we're launching and even the naming. And where we landed with next is for the name is Next NC Scholarship. And some of the rationale behind that is, number one, messages around focusing on their future, whether it's continuing on to go to your institutions and then eventually earn that good paying job so they can take care of their families, focusing on what comes next. That's an important piece of the messaging that we heard. The including NC in the name was important because one of the things we found is while students might know about financial aid, they might know about Pell Grants, many did not know that the state also offered need-based scholarships for students. So we want to make sure that they know that there's help here in the state as well. And then finally, even though this is a program that combines Pell and the state need-based scholarship, we found that it was important to include scholarship in the name because in general, students have some sense that scholarships are related to higher education and are more likely to not need to be paid back. And those were motivators for the students. So when you're out promoting the program, whether it's on social media or other areas where you don't have a lot of copy space, including scholarship in the name helps students get a sense of, oh, you're talking about higher education and money to pay for. Finally, the other important thing to know about the campaign, the tagline is know what you're getting, know where you're going. And as you'll see, we're really clear on, what household size, what dollar amounts is kind of your base guarantee, and that was really motivating for students. So as I shared, filling out the FAFSA will be the application they use to be considered. They don't have to fill out a separate application for it. And how it works is we're combining the Pell Grant students would have received with additional money. So the Pell Grant money is first, the North Carolina need-based scholarship is second. Those get paired together to make up Next NC. And from there, they will get a minimum award they'll get the base guarantee. Some students who have greater need will get more. And then to be eligible, students with an AGI of 80,000 or less and a student aid index of 7,500 or less will qualify for the grant. Now, one of the things when we were working on the campaign is most students won't know what their SAI is. It's certainly not until they complete a FAFSA. And a lot of students want to know, should I even bother completing a FAFSA? Is this even worth it? So we were able to determine that 94% of students with just that AGI number, 80,000 or less, 94% of them will qualify with that alone. So what you'll see in most of the campaign materials, we're using that because indeed most students from families with an AGI of 80,000 or less will qualify for this grant. In terms of the base guarantee for your institution, students can get a minimum of 3,000 per year. If they continue on to your partner institutions with the UNC system, then they would get 5,000 per year. We have set a priority date. This is not a deadline, but it is a priority date because there is a fixed amount of money that the state has, $180 million. So it's a lot, but it is not unlimited. And what we've seen in looking at when students complete a FAFSA, if they complete it by August 15th, which is the vast majority of your students, we can guarantee that minimum amount and then also any additional money they would qualify for. If students complete the FAFSA after August 15th, they can still be considered. It just at some point the money can run out. So we're always trying to encourage students to get those FAFSAs completed early so they can qualify for as much of the aid as they're entitled to. When we talked at messaging, I know this slide has a lot on it. The important takeaways here are lots of messaging worked. As you see, 90+% on all of these. The programs will cut the chance you need student loans. It'll fully cover tuition and fees at any of your institutions. After tuition is covered, you can use it for other things. All of the messaging was successful in terms of creating interest in the program. And so you can use those as you see fit, and you will see us use them in different parts of the campaign. But the thing that statistically moved their interest up and intention up in attending higher education at your institutions was the idea that this is money that doesn't need to be paid back. Students are not always clear that scholarships and grants don't need to be paid back. So the more we can reinforce that message helps them understand there's no catch here. They can apply if they qualify at that 80,000 or less AGI, and they qualify for the grant. They can attend your institution. There's no gimmick, there's no loans, there's nothing coming out the other end that they're going to be surprised about.
Kathy?
Okay. Yeah, please.
So on your previous slide with the dates, excuse me, with the priority dates, the question in the chat is about, is that 2024 instead of 2023?
Yes, thank you. We were presenting from this last year. Yes, thank you. Great catch. 2024.
Gotcha. And I'm kind of assuming that it's going to be August 15th and June 1st, regardless of the year, or you're just going to keep that day and month regardless of the year. Yeah,
and
okay.
And because there's a new calculation here, we're going to get smarter over time in terms of when, can that date move back? Can the dollar amounts move up? We're going to continue to be modeling those, but we wanted to make sure what we promised this year is what we can absolutely deliver. So we know the 3,000, we can guarantee that, and we know the August 15th, we can guarantee that. So yeah, so the intention is those numbers will stay unless we can be more generous over time.
Excellent.
Great question.
Thanks, Kathy.
Yeah, thanks. Great catch. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the campaign resources. Some of these are customizable where you can add your own college logo to them. The website is live, so if you want to go on there later today, nextncscholarship.org is the landing page that provides lots and lots of information. It's reinforcing that message that you can get money for college that doesn't have to be paid back. And it answers several questions for students, like how much money are they potentially going to get? Who's eligible? How do they apply? What can they use the money for? Where does the money come from? And then the fine print. There is the fine print in terms of all of the eligibility requirements, which is all the way down at the bottom of the page. But linking to this website from your financial aid page, particularly your financial aid kind of mini home page, would be great, because that way, if they want more information about the scholarship, all of pretty much anything you would want to know about the scholarship, other than maybe the pay scale, is in there. So feel free to link to that. We encourage you to do that.
And we had a couple of more questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
okay,
please.
Excellent. Thanks, Kathy. Does the base guarantee, the $5,000, does that apply to private institutions? Because I think you work with the private sector too.
Right. Great question. So it does not. So the 3,000 is for an NC community college system institution. 5,000 is a UNC institution. For the private colleges, we do also have a need-based grant. Just their payment schedule and all that is a little different than what we're doing with Next NC, so they are not a part of this, but those scholarships do still exist for the private institutions. And on the landing page, we do have a link off, so if a student is planning to leave your institution and go to a private, they can get more information on that separate need-based grant. Yeah, okay. Great question.
Thanks, Kathy. And then I think later on in your presentation, you're going to talk about the award chart, and depending on your I think you showed that little graph, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so, I can share that.
Excellent. So, Anne, I think your question will be answered later on, but if it's not, nudge us again, okay?
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Then we also have social media. So we have social media tiles as well as sample copy that you can include in your posts. Again, you can do that from your own institution's account so that you're getting your own brand name out there. We will have handouts in both English and Spanish that just talks about more information or goes into more detail, kind of like the landing page does in terms of the nuts and bolts of the program. We will be doing paid media, primarily starting in January. We're doing a little bit of Google ads now, but the primary way students apply for the need-based grant is through the FAFSA, and the FAFSA is not available. So the bulk of the money is going to start hitting in January, and it's going to go all the way through the end of summer. We will be targeting 3 audiences: the parents and guardians of high school students, the students themselves who are 17 and 18 years old, and then adult learners as well. We will have digital displays that you can use on the monitors throughout your institution. And again, you can add your logo. We're still fine tuning things. That image is going to be changed. We think she's a little too young for most of your institutions. So it's one of some of the final tweaks we're doing, but I should have hopefully the rest of the toolkit assets for you in the next day or so. But those are things you can use around your campus. We also will have table tents for you, same thing, where you can put in your logo. The QR code takes them to the landing page where they can get more information about the scholarship. We will have a PowerPoint presentation as well as talking points so that as your admissions folks, your financial aid folks, or others are out and about, either at community presentations or with your high school families, we will have slides ready that you can just pull into your presentation if you wish. And then finally, we will be doing quite a bit of earned media. We've already started getting some press coverage, which is fantastic. We would love to feature some of you all. So if you have spokespeople at your campuses who are willing to author a letter to the editor, an op-ed, or are willing to be interviewed by the media, we are happy to connect you with APCO, who can, draft some of that out and capture some of the messaging that you would specifically want for your institution, but uses the Next NC as a tool to help students realize that information's available, or money is available. We'll include talking points so that you have some of the messaging as well as newsletter blurbs. So if you already have a distribution list of students and families that you're sending out information to, we'll have some blurb that you can cut and paste and kind of tweak for your work. And then just a quick reminder, we do offer some other pieces of help because so much is changing with FAFSA going into this new year. We, over the summer, built the NC FAFSA Hub specifically for school counselors and college access professionals, so that they get the latest trusted information, because I am hearing some misinformation when it comes to the FSA announcements as well. We are keeping that updated with additional trainings and any new news we get from FSA, so that way your counselors that are working with your students have the latest and greatest information. And then many thanks to those of you who have already responded as willing to participate in FAFSA Day. We polled NACASFA several months ago to get, just kind of do a pulse check. Do you want to see FAFSA Day come back, especially considering FAFSA is getting delayed this year? 3/4 of NACASFA members said yes. So we are building some campaign support around FAFSA Day. We have 54 institutions who have already agreed to be host sites. If you don't currently see your college on there, but you want to participate, I would love to hear from you. We've already done our information session, but we did record that session so we can share that with you. We will be building campaign materials. We'll have the yard signs with information on it. We'll have table tents again, flyers, and then we will be promoting it throughout mainly through our counselor and college access list, but we will also be promoting it on social media and earned media as well. So would love to see you participate if you have not already reached out to us. And so I want to make sure I leave some time. So very briefly, Next NC, as you saw, 14-point move in terms of a student's greater interest in attending higher ed, particularly your institutions, just from getting the specific information around the scholarship. Household income of 80,000 or less, base guarantee of 3,000 per year, and those with greater need can earn more. That was very motivating. So happy to partner with any of you in terms of developing some conversion strategies. We are also going to be offering on January 9th for our students and parents a FAFSA line-by-line walkthrough webinar. We just did it this week for school counselors, had about 500 school counselors register, so we walked them through the process. And then in February, is Financial Aid Awareness Month, so we'll continue to keep the media attention up and on, particularly through our CFNC brand, so that students know about the scholarship, know about connecting with your institution to get more support and information, and to help answer that critical need, which is help me afford it, and then I'll consider it. We'll certainly, have more information as we go. I wanted to share my contact information real quick, and then I'll stop sharing and pull up that graphic that you were talking about. But with that, let me pause.
Right,
I know that was a lot.
No, yes, I thank you though, Kathy. I appreciate it. And I think the graph that you're talking about will help answer both Ann and Christy. I think it'll help answer your question as well about how the Pell Grant works with the Next NC. It's just a very informational type of grant or slide. So
Yeah.
as you get
There
that
we go.
pulled up, and so maybe you can talk about that a little bit, and that may help
Yeah.
answer those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So part of what we have seen is, again, just backing up a little bit, one of the things that we've tried to, whoops, let me move that over here, try to accomplish with the grant is to help as many students as we possibly can with the grant. And so we want to make sure that students, the majority of students who can qualify can actually do so. As you move down to the far left part of the chart, minus 1,500, because remember, student aid index can now be negative, which it wasn't, we weren't able to do that in the past. They can now qualify, and that helps us know the ones that have the greatest need. But as you move up the chart, the need shifts from Pell to more of the state dollars, which is how we're able to reach additional folks. Part of the important thing to that we are trying to help. Whoops, sorry, I keep moving things into the screen. We're trying to help folks understand is those. Let me see if I can get to the talking points. Those with the greatest need can get it. As Pell decreases, the state scholarship kicks in more, and so what we're trying to get to is, I think it's the following year, that even at the greatest need, students will still get something. So it'll be $200 as you move to, I think it's 300 SAI. You start to earn $300 in the from the state, and then as it gets higher, you start earning more. So it's a graduated, and I can share this chart with JW, so you can share it out with folks too, so they can kind of see. I'm a visual person, so it helps me to actually look at the numbers too, to kind of see where the breaks are. And so let me pause there. So I know your financial aid folks, the breakout wasn't quite finalized at the NACASFA. The other important thing to know is we will have funds available for summer term. So that's a big switch for this year. We're excited that the funds will be there. And then starting next fall, that's where the neediest students, those who get Max Pell, they'll start getting the $200 per year. And then SAI from 1 to 399 get 300, from 400 and beyond SAI will get, that 400 award. So making sure everybody gets something. But if you want to know more on that, if you want to go deeper, Andrea and Kevin are happy to schedule another deeper dive on all of that, because I know it's confusing.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. And I think it'll help when they have that slide on their own screen and they can kind of really look at it a lot more closely to see
sure.
exactly where those cutoffs are. So I remember we worked very hard to try to extend that guarantee as far up the SAI as we could. And then we also worked very hard to not have a cliff. So that way it kind of gradually decreased as your income increased. And then we also wanted to make sure we tried to give a little bit to our neediest students.
That's right.
And again, I just wish we had a bucket without a bottom, and we could just reach down and had all the money that we needed to help everyone. But you got to cut it off at some point. Another question we received is about the impact of student academic progress. So how does SAP work with this? I'm assuming it's the same as it has in the past, and there's nothing really any different.
Yes, that's correct. Yep. And I saw there's a question around, will the January 9th FAFSA line by line be recorded? It will. So once that session is done, we will put it on the CFNC YouTube channel. And we have lots of folks that go back and look at it later, even if they couldn't attend live. But even those that have attended live, what we find is, at least I know for me, sometimes I watch something, but I want to be able to pause and rewind. So if there's a particular area where they're getting hung up, they can do that at their own pace. We deliberately did that in advance of FAFSA Day so that students and parents can get some idea of what the FAFSA looks like. And then that way they can focus their time with the financial aid folks on FAFSA Day with those pickier, more detailed questions that always tend to come up.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
I know that sometimes we have a little bit of a struggle for some people that are guests on Teams to be able to get a question into the chat. So if you'd like to raise your hand and unmute your microphone, that's fine to be able to hear your question that way as well. We did have a follow-up question on the 1-9 webinar. Is there a registration link? How does that work?
Let me see if that's been set up. If that is, yeah, that is. Let me see if I can get that for you. Okay. Oops. All right. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
So yeah, we haven't started promoting that yet because we're a couple, but you can certainly feel free to do so. We just set it up this week.
Okay, so excellent. Thanks, Kathy. The next question there has to deal with kind of the name branding, and that it seems like there's different names out there right now. So I'm assuming Next NC Scholarship and the NC Scholarship is really the same thing. We're just kind of having a branding change. I think that's
correct. Yeah. Yes. So that we have added we didn't want to muddy the waters going into this last year because we needed time to get the research results, but more importantly with EFC changing to SAI, which obviously changed the calculations, it was too much of a mess. So we wanted to start with a clean year, new SAI. I know on CFNC, Wendy added a second page for the new school year that will now say the Next NC Scholarship. The other important detail, which I think we're still finalizing in partnership with your financial aid offices, but this is a combined program of Pell Grant and the state scholarship. And so on a financial aid award letter, a lot of times federal aid and state aid are on different parts of that award letter. And so we were starting to think through, well, are students going to be confused? Like, hey, where's my 3,000, my base guarantee? And it's actually going to be in two parts. So Pell Grant will be, a big chunk of that. but the NC scholarship is going to be renamed Next NC, and it might have some language around, state supplement or whatever language your financial aid departments and Kevin finally land on to help students understand that. But we will also be training the school counselors, because very often they're the ones going through the financial aid award letters with students, so that they know, hey, the Pell is up here, the state scholarship supplement is here combined. That's the Next NC, so students aren't confused.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up, Kathy. I think you're right. That will be a question that'll hit the financial aid offices is, hey, I thought I was guaranteed 3,000, and they are not realizing that part of that 3,000 is their Pell Award.
That's right.
And they may be thinking an additional 3,000 on top of the Pell.
Yeah, we're trying to make that clear up front. So folks aren't disappointed, but yeah. I know when we talked to our Tennessee colleagues who, did a similar program, that is part of what they said. Just make sure everyone's trained. Your financial aid folks know how to talk through it, but make sure the counselors and others, including your admissions folks, know, so that they're able to explain it to students.
And I'm glad you brought that up as well. So this is not the last conversation, everybody. This is the first of conversations. This is not a one and done. We're not playing college basketball. We will continue to keep the communication lines open. And if we need to have another Q&A, we definitely will. So any other questions from our audience? I'm not seeing any more in the chat. Feel free to put anything in the chat or unmute.
And just want to encourage folks, again, as the research shows, this significantly increases students' interest in higher education and in your programs. And so I encourage you to work with your communications teams to update the homepage on your financial aid section, to make sure that this is included on your scholarship section. And if any folks are interested in, if it's a working group or whatever would be helpful to you all in terms of thinking about how do we want to use this as a conversion strategy to help students who might be considering but still on the fence, can we use this Next NC as a way to move them from thinking to taking action? Happy to be a partner in that conversation.
Excellent. And I know Kathy's contact information will be in the slides when we send that out, but I went ahead and threw your email address in the chat so people will have it right away. Okay, we'll pause. I think I was taught to wait a full 10 seconds. So we'll pause here for just a couple more seconds to see if there's any follow-up questions. Feel free to unmute your microphone or put it in the chat.
Hopefully y'all are as excited as we are. We have seen from Tennessee and others that this can be the thing that really helps to move action. So.
Well, one thing that I would like to encourage our audience as we come to a close is I know a lot of you are working with Monty Hickman, who is working with each of your colleges on your enrollment management plans. And sometimes we forget to include in our communication plans to students and our enrollment management strategies to leverage the financial aid that's available for them. And so I encourage you to have that thinking in your mind because I think that's the research that is the insight of the research that SEAA has done that she shared at the beginning of this presentation is it matters when we tell them there's funding available to help and you don't have to go in debt. Right. So any last comments, Kathy, before we close?
Yeah, I think you touched on it, which is not only is money available, but, particularly for those students that are afraid of student debt. And I understand that they want to be moving their lives forward. They want to be helping their families. This really helps reduce their chance of needing to take on student loan debt. So that's a big motivator.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate your time today. Appreciate everybody joining us. And in the next day or so, we'll get the slides out to everyone and the recording of this presentation. So I'll stop the recording now. I'll hang on for a little bit if anybody wants to chat. But thank you, everybody, for your time today. And I hope you have a great weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, folks.